Guys, there are 1,000 different ways we're going to have this conversation today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on and so forth. There's a college football playoff selection coming up later on at the end of the week. We've got rivalry games to talk about. We've got conference championship games to talk about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, this series not too long ago was a debacle for Carolina football. That is not the case anymore. Shane Beamer has come along and turned everything around. South Carolina's won 2 of the last 3, both of them on the turf of the Tigers. And once again, this state is run by the Garnet and the Black. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yeah, what a weekend. What a game. I think Shane Beamer said it perfectly. I think Coach Sweeney said it perfectly. There's 2 really good football teams that played a really good football game. And the best player on the field, and for that matter, the best freaking player in the country right now, LaNorris Sellers, took it into his hands. And, Clemson did this for a long time. They had the best player in the state. They had the best player in the field. They had the best player in the country. Even though Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson didn't win a Heisman Trophy, they were phenomenal. And they would single-handedly beat teams. That's Carolina's deal now. LaNorris Sellers has emerged as maybe the best quarterback going right now in college football.
Oh, yeah. As my friend Mike Morgan always says, if you don't have a quarterback, you're what, Mike?
SOL.
SOL. And the Gamecocks obviously have one. And, I think just talking about that position, guys, it's so critical for quarterbacks who have talent to make clutch plays in clutch situations, because then it becomes habit. Right. And you're talking to a guy that grew up watching NFL football. You remember John Elway when Dan Reeves coached for them. You didn't want him to get the ball with a minute to go. You knew it was going to happen. Bernie Kosar, when last time the Browns were good, decades ago, it was like that. And then the Broncos did it to them in the playoffs one year. But, you just all those 49ers teams with Steve Young and Joe Montana, those types of guys are rare. Because you can find a guy that can throw it. It's got an arm. You can find a guy that can run an offense, find a guy that's athletic, maybe not as freaky big and fast as LaNorris Sellers is, but those guys that make it a habit of when the game is on the line coming through, they are special, and they are very often the difference between winning and losing. And that's what's happened. That's what happened against Missouri through the air. And that's what happened Saturday with the legs of one LaNorris Sellers.
Yeah, after the A&M game, I was talking about Heisman moments. I thought that game was chock full of those type of moments for LaNorris Sellers. This game obviously took on a different identity.
Yeah,
you're trailing late. Your season, not to be overly dramatic, I'm going to get to this later. I'm not giving up on the playoff, and I've got a bunch of numbers that I've been crunching now for the last 24 hours. But your postseason hopes are on the line. And then obviously your chances of beating your in-state rival are on the line. Those moments by LaNorris Sellers, that's a different category, because you're down. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that are really good front runners, right? Like when you're leading, and they can put on a show. But that was different. And you have to be convinced that without him, I don't think that game is won. That this was not Carolina's best game of the year by any stretch. This was one player clearly being the best player on the field. And I'll say this, I'll give credit to Dabo Sweeney for one thing. It's pretty obvious, and he and Shane have a mutual respect for one another. Oh, yeah. I dare say they like each other personally. He did not offer any excuses, and he went out of his way to praise, what I would call effusive praise, for LaNorris Sellers.
Right.
And that's a guy he knows he's going to have to go against for the next couple of years, minimum. So I'll give Dabo credit for that much. But for me, the growth of LaNorris goes back to a game and a performance that nobody really talked much about. And I went out of my way to do it after this game because I saw that this was the maturation of Sellers as the player, because he wasn't playing elite football in September. He was playing good football. There were mistakes like most first-year starters. But in the Oklahoma game, there weren't great numbers, but I thought that he didn't make any mistakes, held on to the ball, made all the right reads. I thought that was like step one. It got lost in the shuffle because you didn't need an elite performance, and it was a domination performance by Carolina as a whole. But I think at that point, from that point on, he has gotten better every single week. It's not just the freaky athleticism. That was there. Some people were just born with that. He clearly was born with a gear that most humans that walk this earth will never know or never have. But it was the other facets of the game that came along.
In the upstate, and these two do go hand in hand clearly, but they did it again. They went up there and broke their hearts again and again. A turnover at the very end of the ball game for Clemson that affected the outcome. Not obviously the LaNorris Sellers stuff happened, but you talk about finish. LaNorris Sellers has finished games in this streak here, and in this series, the last two trips to the upstate, Carolina has finished on their home field, and Clemson has not been able to get it done. What does all that mean? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think part of what it means, Jamie, and I think a lot of Clemson fans in a moment of truth serum would tell you the same thing. It means one program is trending one way and another is trending the complete opposite, honestly. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think Clemson is going to go anywhere in terms of they're still going to recruit, they're still going to be good, but who would you rather buy stock in at this moment in time?
Oh, well,
Carolina or Clemson?
Yeah.
I mean, think outside of this show. What would your average person say?
Right.
It's two in a row in Death Valley, and you've got the freshman quarterback that's going to be around. I know somebody mentioned
at least one more year.
At least one more. Yeah,
be one more.
Yeah, that's true. I understand that. I understand that, but no, I mean, and I have to think. And JC, this is more in your wheelhouse, but in this offseason, there is going to be more weapons for Lenorris to work with next year.
Oh, yeah.
I've got that in my notes today to get to that. This is a totally different offseason we're about to enter than any other offseason in Carolina.
Yes, and I say that, look, I hesitate. These wide receivers are doing their damn best, and they're not bad. They're not bad. There's some good players on there, but they're not dominating guys. They're not, okay, it's 3rd and 5. I need a one-on-one play. Who's my guy? There's just nobody that stands out. The best guy in that category has been a tight end in Simon. But help is on the way. The only other way of looking at that is, well, this defense, and I hope no one takes it for granted, there is no guarantee the defense next year is going to be this dominating. Right. This defense, you could lean on it every single week. It's special.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Clemson had a great game plan against Carolina. They got the ball out quick. They weren't interested in getting sacked or pressured. Right. And their receivers, like I talked about all week, made plays.
Those two freshmen are good, aren't they?
Yeah, there's some plays early on in the game. They set the tone. It was like, I don't know how you could have covered him any better. I don't know what you're supposed to do for Judge Collier. One of those things DQ Smith probably could have reached in there. But anyway, long story short, it was a good win. And LaNorris Sellers is a special player. And I feel good about where he's at and the future.